everyone, and welcome to Babies with Knives. Today, we're speaking with David Okum above me. Hi, David.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming on.
No
David is the
worries.
David is the creator of Save the Day as superhero RPG. So he's going to walk us through a bit of a character creation. I'm Alice Peng, aka Lala Twiddle, and below me is the ever-present and awesome Brandon Powers.
Howdy, howdy, everybody. So, David, the first thing that I want, can you just give us as well as our viewers a little bit of basic information on Save the Day? I've been following it a little bit, I'll tell you,
Mhm.
for a while, but have never really gotten to delve into it.
Sure. Save the Day started as an idea for a simple, rules light superhero game that you could start quickly. Good for pickup games. Good for kids. So I did a lot of play testing with younger people to see how it would shape up. It came out of a dungeon crawl game I did called Dark Fast Dungeons, which I put together as again, uh, dungeon crawling for people who couldn't, have the time to have a full campaign of D&D, but still wanted the same kind of experience. So what I did was I took those basic bare bones of rules and I put them together with some superhero rules and created Save the Day. So the goal is to make characters quickly and have them be able to be flexible enough to emulate whatever kind of superhero character you wanted to make.
And you
That's awesome.
and you mentioned a dungeon crawl, so this game is a bit on the tactical side, correct?
Yeah, its foundation was a tactical game, was a solo possible solo game for Dark Fast Dungeons. I actually was nominated for an Emmy for a game called Katana Schoolgirls versus Ninja Furries, which was the foundation of the Dark Fast Dungeon system. But I streamlined it a bit when I created Dark Fast Dungeons and really wanted to try my hand at a superhero game. So like the old school Champions was fairly tactical with a map and all that sort of thing. I found that it sort of played well that way. So with Champions, you'd have a map with hexes and you'd move things around. We used to use little beads in little counters. And that way you knew where you were and you knew how many inches it was from something. And with this, it's a little more flexible. There are grid maps that you could use, like 3rd edition D&D. But I have played a lot of Theater of the Mind with it as well, successfully, and it's still fun that way as well.
Fantastic. Well, let's get started. First
Actually,
off,
Sure.
one other thing that I want to get done. I'm looking at the credits page here, and I
Okay.
see that you are the only one. So, is this art all your art?
This is mine. I am the artist
It
and the
is.
writer.
It is fantastic. I love the art for
Thank you.
Save the Day.
it's very
Thank
good
you.
art.
I was going for a very Silver Age vibe, sort of Batman the Animated Series and Super Friends and that sort of thing. Just to kind of keep it light, to keep it fun, and I think the game itself, the gameplay kind of reflects that as well.
Awesome. I look forward to playing around with it and later on playing actual play. So, I'm showing the viewers the character sheet that comes with the PDF when you buy it right now. And it's a little bit not straightforward. So, do you want to explain how it works to people in case they get it and they're like, what am I supposed to click? I know
Well, at
how
the
to use it,
top,
but.
yeah, at the top you're going to have origins. So there's two things you have to choose when you make up a character. You have to choose an origin card and a class card. And in the play test, how I did it was I had them printed off on 8.5 by 11 sheets, and the sheets were cut in half. And you sort of picked through the origin pile, and then you picked through the class pile until you came up with a combination of character that you wanted. So you might have something like oh gosh, I'm trying to think now, a feral mystic or something like that. You're making this character as you go, but you might have a concept, sort of, if you wanted to play a character that already exists in a comic book, you might think, oh, well, you know what, Green Arrow is kind of like a highly trained weapon master, so I want to play like a Green Arrow character, and that way you can quickly get to making that character with those types of choices.
And I noticed that you give a body build option for the bare bones for people to start coloring in and drawing their costume onto, right? On the
That
along
was
the side.
that was when I was 13 years old. That was my favorite part of was photocopying those sheets and coloring in my own characters. So yeah, heck yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Awesome. I'm going to choose the running female on mine, and I've chosen
Okay.
Elemental Weapon Master. What about you, Brandon?
Well, I wanted to talk first of all. What's your concept? You just listed off what you're going with, but
Yeah.
how did you get there?
So I have 3 different images in my mind, and I'm going to see how the system works. But basically, one way or another, it's like, kind of this earth elemental that can reshape body parts into weapons, or like a fire or a water version of that. So a slick looking water version that, my arms, my hands, and maybe my head turn into weapons, or etc. Yeah.
Your
I guess I'm
head
kind of
turns
going.
into a weapon. I love this. It reminds me of an old friend of mine with this dwarf that had a helmet spike on, and
Like a
things
hammerhead
happen.
shark. Hammerhead shark. If I'm water, I
There
can
you
turn
go.
my head into a hammerhead shark and then hammer people with my head. Oh my gosh, if Walt ever watches this, I'll never live this down. He's going to throw me next time instead of a rhino. Okay. So what about you, Brandon?
For me, I want to make a Muskrateer. So it's a alternate world muskrat that is basically in that the 3 Musketeers, but they're the Musketeers, and so he gets transported over to this reality and is now living in this strange world of humans, but still trying to live up to those idealistic romantic codes that he came from. So looking at these, I'm kind of torn. Feral seems more like he would be. The example here is the raised by wolves type stuff. So I don't think that's really the origin I want to go with. So I'm looking at highly trained. I think probably would be the most true for a somebody with that kind of origin.
What about Anachronism for that origin?
I was looking at the Anachronism, but trapped in another time and place, the Anachronism clings to their former life and norms, constantly puzzled and horrified by the era in which they found themselves. And so the example picture here is this wonderful caveman that looks like he could be fighting Captain Caveman himself at some point. And so that seemed to be somebody who just cannot really understand, rather than someone who is still kind of, a swashbuckling hero of the modern day. So from comics, I thought more like a Khazar or something, where if you are a musketeer, you were a very highly trained individual in that fiction.
Yes. Looking at or thinking that through, highly trained seems like it would be right up there. You also have super senses, so that could cover some of your muskrat senses as well under highly trained. And I'd say either I was looking at weapons master, but then I was also looking at crime fighter, which could be an interesting class for that origin as well.
Yeah, it was weapon master, martial artist, and crime fighter that I was kind of bouncing between, and had not really figured out which one sounded the most applicable to me.
Crime fighter would give you more of a three musketeers vibe. I almost said Three Stooges vibe. More of a Three Musketeers vibe because of its super gear, your super warrior ability, intimidate as kind of like a trash talk kind of thing you could do. So there's a lot of potential there, I think.
That sounds wonderful. So we're going to go with a highly trained crime fighter.
Right. Okay. Perfect.
Awesome. Fantastic.
I like it when players come into the game and they have sort of a concept, because then you kind of shop around on the character sheets and you see what you have, and sometimes you choose origins and classes that maybe don't seem intuitive for the concept, but when you look at what's available on some of the sheets, it makes more sense for that kind of character. So yeah, that looks good. Okay.
So now the step 3 is to distribute 2 panel power ranks among the 12 listed on both cards. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Now there's different types of powers. So the 2 types are panels, and panels are like game turns. Panels are action rounds. So a panel is like a panel on a page. A game turn is like a page. A panel is what you can do on that page. Okay, so your panel is your turn to do something. So when you distribute 2 panel power ranks, these are powers that you can use every panel. You don't have limitations. Issue powers, for example, can only be used once per issue. So if you ever watched Iron Fist, you have basically a character that has all these powers. He uses a lot of martial arts fighting, but it only ever uses his power once per episode for some reason. It's because he's got issue power. You can only do it once per issue. So you can kind of choose those. So 2 panel powers and 2 issue powers, and they give you the initial, your starting character powers to start with.
Okay, so are we limited to 1 for origin and 1 for class, or can we put it both in origin or both in class, etc.?
Yep. Yeah, there's 12 powers listed on your cards when you put them both together. So an elemental weapon master, for example, as you can see on the character sheet there, their panel powers are blast, transform, favorite terrain, entrap, communication, and an alternate power called mutate, which gives you a lot of flexibility, but it only allows you to do it one thing at a time. So if you wanted to be able to turn your power into a narwhal horn on your head, then you could make a roll to see if you could do that. You might not be able to do it right away. You might be running around being chased by the villain trying to turn your power on, but that's one thing alternate power can do. So elemental powers are there, and then the weapon master powers for panels. You have super warrior, weapon foo, blast, another alternate power called trick shot, and super gear, and talented. Talented is just what it sounds like, gives you more options to have more talents.
So the 2 questions are that can I choose from any of the 12? I'm not limited to one half or the other. And the other one is it just a toggle on and off, so I just fill in the whole bubble, or am I going to be putting a number in there?
Well, as your character gets more experience, you put a rank number in there. So when you start off, you spend your points by putting maybe 1 power in blast, and for example, and 1 power in talented, 1 power point in talented. But you could, for example, if you just wanted to be like the blaster character, like Cyclops or something, you could put 2 ranks of power into blast to really do a little bit more oomph with your blast during combat.
Okay. So am I going to have to take transformation in order to transform myself into weapons, or can I have the weapon foo and that's enough in the way that your system does power of foo skinny?
Well, weapon foo is sort of a John Wick movies, well, I guess before that, John Woo movies, because basically weapon foo allows you to move and act without having that affect your ability to attack with a weapon. So you have to choose the weapon, of course, but Wolverine, say, moving through a group of people and using his claws would be weapon foo. So he doesn't receive a negative modifier for using up his movement, for example.
So I would still have to take transformation in order to transform to have that weapon.
Well, transformation would be transforming your entire character. Something like mutate, alternate power mutate, or even alternate power trick shot would allow you to have some freedom to have a role to change your power as you go. So, for example, if you wanted to have claws of a tiger, then that alternate power mutate you'd have to make a roll. It's your ability plus a d6. The goal would be to get a 9 for that kind of power, but you can also buy powers as a talent that also adds to that roll. So there are also conditions that you can take more time. You can do things to make it a little easier. But generally, usually when characters are in the combat, if they want to be more effective, they transform their powers before they get there, and then that's what they have. But if they want to change something, let's say, like maybe have a stretchy arm with that sort of thing, then the alternate power mutate would allow you to, if you made your roll, would allow you to like extend your arm into like a tentacle of a octopus and capture the kid before he falls off the roller coaster or something like that.
Okay, so it sounds like instead of weapon foo, I should be looking at taking I should be taking transformation and alternate power mutate to start with.
I think those two would be good. So transformation would be different. So it would be form of water, and hopefully somebody has a form of a bucket, and then you can have your alternate power mutate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's what I'll do then. One in transformation and one in alternate power mutate. What about you, Brandon?
I think I am going to go with what David mentioned is the super senses to show the heightened muskrat senses, and then I'm going to go with stunts because I'm a musketeer. I'm coming from the inspiration of Errol Flynn, movies and stuff like that, and so more flash than substance type of thing. So
yes.
Stunts just sounds way too applicable.
Well, stunts can also give you bonuses to do actions and attacks. So if you choose to do a stunt, like say running up the side of a wall and then coming down with your sword on top of the opponent, if you make your stunt roll, depending on your result, it could give you a bonus to hit, for example. So it's kind of a fun power or fun thing to have. So.
Cool. Well, then
okay.
Move on right to number 5.
Okay. So you've got your panel powers chosen, and then you have 2 issue power ranks between the 6 listed on both cards, and you can have more than 1 rank per power as well on there. If you have more than 1 rank of an issue power, you can do it more than once per issue. So for example, if you're a weapon master and you have critical hit, you could have 2 automatic critical hits per issue, which is kind of a nice perk. Did you have any questions about the powers? Just as you're going by and choosing, I can help you out with that.
I'm just
flipping through and looking at them right now.
Yes, I'm flipping through. I think that pure element sounds like it might be good with the concept I was going with. And
pure. So for example, the pure element, I think that is a good choice based on your description. But basically, it transforms you into a being of that element. So if you choose, say, rock, you turn literally into a statue, a rock statue that would be pretty much invulnerable, or water or something like that, or wind. You could disappear into the wind, and it gives you the character a chance to choose 6 new talents, like mighty or toughness, 3 talents and a panel power, or 3 panel powers. But all of your social abilities are at -3. Okay. So usually what I do with that is I let the GM make the choices. So for example, if you're turning into pure water, you're going to obviously take less damage if you get hit. You're going to be able to seep through doors. You're going to be through keyholes and things like that. So it becomes kind of up to the you can describe what it is, but it comes up to the GM to describe or to make the final choice on. Oh, okay, that makes sense. You would have to be able to turn into water and then slide under the door. That would make perfect sense. So.
I think the other one I'm going to take is Guns A-Blazing once an issue, because it seems to me like all of a sudden, I'm shooting out bullet. I turn my hands into guns if I'm the earth elemental or the wood elemental, and then I start shooting wood or rock bullets at people. It seems kind of fun, so I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, or frost icicles or something like that. Yeah, it'll let you. Yeah, so Guns A-Blazing basically lets you make range attacks a number of times equal to your ability. So starting characters have 3 abilities, so you get 3. Once per issue, you just get a chance to just open up and have like a major attack on the without penalty for 1 panel per issue. So it can be quite effective.
That sounds fun. So
yeah,
that's what I'm choosing. What about you, Brandon?
I'm going to go, and I seem to really be leaning into that highly trained, which tells me that's a good pick for me, definitely. But I'm going to grab Analyze Weakness, which allows me to take a panel and observe somebody, find how they're going to be weak to my fighting style. And I see that absolutely in that Musketeer is, you're set up, you're ready, you observe, and then you come in and you get a bonus against them for the rest of the encounter. And to pair with that, I am going to go with Fists of Fury, which is going to give me a number of hand-to-hand attacks equal to my ability score without a penalty for.
Yeah, and that's the hand-to-hand version of Guns. Essentially, lets you just open up with your hand-to-hand attack. So it'd be perfect for a Zoro-like sword attack.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, after that, I believe we have to deal with something called Dark Secrets, which is on page 51. You want to tell us a little bit about that while Brandon and I start reading?
Yeah, certainly. Dark secrets are a way of balancing your characters. So every superhero has a weakness. Superman has kryptonite. Batman has his past, and he also has his sidekicks, characters that depend on him. Alfred, for example, does a lot for him, but he has the weaknesses. He's a weakness in some ways. So every superhero has some sort of thing which they're more susceptible to. Wolverine and magnetism, for example. So there's all kinds of different effects that those dark secrets are going to have. Now, the dark secrets themselves are not listed on the character, but they're in they are listed in the rulebook, and they're on gray pages. So, for example, you might have if you're Superman and you'd have kryptonite allergy, maybe you'd have allergy. You can have an arch enemy. So if you want a villain that shows up once in a while in your game, the GM gets to roll a d6 at the beginning of the adventure, and if I roll a 1, then that villain might make an appearance in some way. It doesn't have to be a physical appearance. It could be a box of candies they send or something that they do. Constructs, if your character is like a robot or a animated golem or something, the construct doesn't heal. They have to be repaired in some way. So you have dependence, which means that you rely on other characters rely on your character for some reason. Disabilities, fears. You can be honorable or dishonorable. You could be a hunter. You could be looking for an actual villain or something. Inhuman means that you lack some basic humanity. So, for example, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, are just like teenage pizza-loving guys, but their appearance is shocking to the general public. Mundane, which means that you don't actually have powers. You're like Batman, perhaps. You rely on gadgets. Somebody like No Worries, where you basically lope through the adventure at a lower defense. Some people like that kind of thing. Orders, which means that you have people that tell you what to do. You could be poor, so you could lack resources, have power limitations. Maybe your powers don't work in direct sunlight, or maybe they only work, when it's raining, something like that. You could have
Question. So I'm looking at taking honorable, inhuman, and power limitation. For the power limitation, I'm looking at the fact that I need element to access. So basically, if I am in water, I can't turn into an earth elemental or light, or anything that wouldn't be synergistic to that element. And I'm looking at basically the 5 elements chart, so I couldn't deal with the opposing and such like that. Would that be work? Okay, it sounds like it works. Awesome.
Yeah, that would work really well. Yeah, it's a good choice. Yeah.
Great. Those are
As
my
another question, you referenced the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which obviously are going to be something that I'm also pulling from. So there, I'm wondering, are they hunting Shredder? Do they have an arch enemy of Shredder, or do they have both?
That's a good question. It can have both. So, for example, when I create classic characters like Batman, he has arch enemies and he's hunting. So that's a double whammy right there, right? So if a villain shows up and you have hunt them, you kind of have to drop everything and go for that villain. It's kind of something you're bound to do. You can resist it with an ability, but that's a good question. So I think there's a little bit of both there, definitely.
And something I'm scrolling through, and I don't see one for like addiction type stuff. Not that your powers need it, but that you are predisposed to doing this type of thing.
Certainly. So if you have a peek here, I just lost my pages here. So for example, you might have a reliance. So you might be reliant on something. That's what the dark secret is called, reliance. So if you, for example, need to consume a chemical to keep your powers going, or if you need a magic stone to stay in this reality, a reliance on that item is what that disadvantage or that dark secret is called.
Well, I'm more like if someone is, that they are succumb to the wiles of, the opposite sex so easily. Something like
Sure.
that.
Now that could be more of a social. So if they're lecherous or if they're making comments that are insensitive, that could be a social dark secret that it sort of puts people off of them. Then they may not be successful and they can't figure out what they're doing.
Gotcha. Well, I think I'm going to go with the arch enemy and hunter combination, as
Okay.
well as the inhumane.
Okay. And that just gives you a -1 checks with other characters. Generally, when it if you say trust me and you're like a Muskrat Three Musketeer character, people might laugh. People might say, you, like how can I trust you? So it'd be like, Rocket Raccoon would be kind of similar, right? Having that kind of people would look at him and go, underestimate him in that sense.
Awesome. Well, this is going very quickly.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we've got our 3 done. And what's next? Step 7 is basic characters start with an ability of 3, health of 6, and 1 hero point. So it sounds like that's just an easy auto fill in, right?
Yeah. Before we get to that, though, there's 6 talents to choose from, and I think that's sometimes that helps you fine tune what the character can do, what they're able to, what their skills are, what their abilities are that are maybe non-powered. So on your sheet, there's the list of talents, and they kind of join up together with the classes and the origins. And you have 2 lists. Just use them. There is some overlap on the lists. I generally just say put all the points together. So if you have 6 points and you want to spend 2 points on combat mastery, for example, you would definitely put them there. And I can explain the talents as we're going along as well if you have any questions.
Okay. Let's go to talents and look.
Do you have a page number that talents are starting at?
Yeah,
23. I think I got to them.
23,
23.
All right. Well, I'm taking Acrobat. I don't care what it does.
Sorry, so how many talents do we get to choose?
You get to choose 6 talents from either card.
6 talents, okay.
And as I said, you can have more than 1 rank per talent. I generally actually the rules limit the number of points in a talent to the ability of the character. So if the character's ability is 2 and they're an agent, the best they're going to get at attacking with a sword is going to be 2 plus 2. So it kind of puts the balance in there for the characters.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely taking combat mastery, and I think I'm going to take 3 in that, just because that seems to be a focus for the character that I have.
Okay, so with combat mastery, you choose what kind of combat it is. So in your case, it might be your powers in a hand-to-hand way. That would be, you have to kind of choose whether it's going to be a hand, what power it's going to be. Normally, it's sort of something like combat mastery. You would say, oh, I'm really good with swords, so my combat mastery is in swords.
For me, it would be weapons molded out of me. Would that work?
That would work, because that's pretty specific, yeah.
Yeah, because I can't pick up anything and use it. I can't pick up a rock and throw it. I have to make it out of myself and hope I'm the right element to work with that at the time.
Yeah, and if a villain or a situation has suppress, for example, and tries to shut down your elemental powers with magic or something, you could limit what you can do with that. So you have to kind of it helps to kind of choose what you're going to use that with. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, please. Oh, sorry. You mentioned Acrobat as one thing you're going to choose, and that makes perfect sense for that character. That can be combined with your stunts as well. And Acrobat allows you to just do some outrageous swing on the chandelier maneuver and gain some bonuses to your attack. And combining that with stunts is brilliant, because that gives you lots of opportunity to just do amazing things with your attacks and your maneuvers.
So I've got a question here, because I came across one that I'm definitely interested in, but it's not on either one of my lists.
Okay.
So is there a way that you can get these when they're not there?
What I do generally is, and for character construction, we generally choose what's on the sheets. When you advance with experience points, I allow people to shop around with with their talents. So it doesn't cost as much experience points to, for example, gain a talent as opposed to a power rank. So it's possible for you to choose a talent that's not on your card as you go up in levels. But for basic, what was the talent you were thinking?
Charming.
Charming, yeah. That does make sense for your character, but I think you could, with some creativity in this game, for example, your acrobatics, doing a breakdance spin and then ending up in a cool pose would give you a possibility of overcoming your inhuman quality, right? So that might impress people with your prowess as opposed to your raw charm in that sense. So that's something you might want to think about as you're considering the character. Is that there are other ways of attaining the same thing in some cases. Yeah, you just have to kind of be creative with your character concept that way.
So
Gotcha.
I've now taken 6 points. I've taken 3 in combat mastery, 2 in mighty, and 1 in counterattack. Seemed to me like, with the fact that I'm built out a weapon, I built the weapon out of me, that it would be pretty natural for me to counterattack when I've successfully defended.
I highly encourage counterattack. It does make combat go much faster. When you're attacked and the villain misses you, if you have counterattack, you get like a free attack. So your defensive roll becomes a sort of a counterattack roll against your opponent. So I've had many villains come running at characters with counterattack, and then as they swing, the hero does a spin kick and knocks them to the ground. So
I read that.
combat, combat can go pretty quickly in that sense. So I find it speeds up the process, and so you're not bogged down in combat all the time.
Awesome.
So tell me about gear, because I'm needing to decide now whether I'm taking gear or not for, my musketeer type stuff.
Yeah, so gear, 1 rank of gear gets you a rank 1 gear. There's a gear list in the book here. It's in the I can't remember what color section I put it in. But basically, what gear does is you can say if you have an item that does something. So, for example, your costume, your flashy, 3 Musketeers costume with your hat and everything, you can, for example, put 1 level of charm into that costume. So that rank of charm balances out your inhumanity. So when they see a muskrat dressed as in this wonderful snappy costume, then you are, oh, he's okay. He's dressed as the 3 Musketeers, so he must be all right.
But for me to say, like, I have a sword or something like that, I don't need that to take gear, right?
Well, when you're making your character gear, that you can, at the end of the step 8, that you can choose. So, for example, you could choose a sword. I believe it's a rank 1 gear. If you choose like a heavy sword, it would be plus. It would be a rank 2 ranks of gear. But yeah, so you could do something like that if that's something you're interested in down the way. But putting it under a talent allows you to, as a talent gives you 3 ranks of gear that you can choose from to add to more gear. So if you have more of a character that's more of a gadgeteer or a Batman kind of character, it makes more sense to have access to these gadgets. Now I go into more detail in the advanced book on creating gadgets, and I like those rules better. So I use them. But I'm working on 2 gear books right now as well, so that you'll be able to kind of pick and choose. But it's picky work going through and making gear for all different types of characters.
All right. Well, I've got my 6 then.
Okay.
I, tried to. There were other things that were interesting to me, by all means. Oh, I just saw one that I don't think I read. Difficult to hit. Ooh, that's super tempting, but I'm going to skip. Acrobatic, counterattack, favorite attack of my musketeer sword, physical, tactics, and disengage. And tactics I thought was a really cool one, since apparently innately you are going to be attacking whoever's closest to you. and that allows you to, decide to swing on the chandelier away from that person and go after the master villain rather than the thugs.
Yeah, and disengage is really helpful too, especially counter. If you disengage, they get an attack of opportunity on you, right? So with the disengage, they lose that option. So you kind of slide out of the combat without having to worry about that. So it gives you lots of potential there.
All right, what are we on to next?
Well, in the I think step 7 was mentioned, where you started with an ability of 3. So what we're playing is the basic level. So we're playing, starting characters. I would say, I always kind of say this is sort of like Nightwing's first day out or something like that. Even I've built Robin as a basic character as well. So basically, your ability is 3. Your health is 6, and you have a hero point.
Where do we put the hero point on the sheet? I can't find it.
Now, what I normally do is I give out little glass beads as hero points, and we usually put those on top of the character sheet. So if you're lucky or super lucky, you can have more hero points. You can also gain hero points during role playing and for critical hits.
Awesome.
So that can sometimes help. If you save the day during the adventure, like say you could go after the villain, but you help somebody who's injured, there's a hero point there, just to help balance that off. And they have all kinds of effects. Hero points have all kinds of effects in the game that are outlined. But I generally, what I do, as I said, you could write down how many you have, but I usually wait and assume you have 1. And then if you have lucky or super lucky, then you would indicate how many you have.
Awesome. So I have one other question. You said we're starting with starting characters, in Nightwing, street level. So for comic scale, there's a field here. What should I place in there for comic scale? Is that street level, or do you have a different term in your game?
I usually use the term basic, so that's a basic scale. Okay. Yeah, I've got super, epic, cosmic. So there's all kinds of different scales that you can eventually get to here. I think I have normals to start with: thugs, agents, basic, super, epic, iconic. That's what I missed, and cosmic. Yeah.
I have one quick question. You said we get 6 talent points, right?
That's correct.
Okay. You might want to fix your book. In your book, it says on step 8, there's choose 3 ranks of gear or
That's
talents.
a different step. That's a different step.
No, he jumped us
That is a different step.
Oh, okay, but I don't see the talents before that. Oh, okay, that was number...
Step 5. That's okay. Step 5 has the talents on the check.
Yeah, I see that now. My apologies.
That's okay. Oh, no worries. The reason I give the option in step 8 talent is that sometimes it doesn't make sense for a character to have gear, like an elemental, for example.
Yeah, I don't have gear.
Why do you need a lunchbox or something like that? You don't need that sort of thing. So you might want another talent, another rank of a talent to it would make more sense, for you to have that. So at step 8, that's why I give that option for you.
Just a quick question: is the lunchbox a piece of gear in your game? I'm just picturing that right now. Superhero bashing someone with a lunchbox. It's a collector's item.
It could be. It's a really old reference to Saturday Night Live episode when Kirk Douglas is playing Spartacus in a Piper Cub. And he sees the enemy soldiers below him, and he throws a lunchbox out at them. I just found that so funny, and it's stuck with me all these years. So there you go.
Ah, okay. So now we start with the next step, right? Now we go to step 8, where I had accidentally jumped to earlier.
That's okay. So if you don't have the gear, if you don't sensible to you, you just pick another talent. So you have another point of talent. For example, if you wanted to have some gear, you could look. It's in the yellow section here. I have some gear listed, rank 1. It's kind of broken down by types of things. So rank 1, I have snappy costume for your +1 to all social roles. So that would balance off that inhuman dark secret, so that it's a little more aesthetically pleasing and kind of cute maybe. You could have a lightly armored costume. That might make sense even for the elemental, to have maybe some sort of containment suit. That might give them 2 points of armor, or if you spent 3 points, you'd have a heavily armored. She could have a heavily, or she or he could have a heavily armored costume, which could also be an option. So
yeah, I'm looking at taking that lightly armored costume and a medium weight melee weapon for the sword, and
yes.
that spends all 3 of those. By all means, I'm like, oh, I could have taken some more of that. I could have taken that gear talent right now, but I think that the innate abilities. I can say, well, sure, I've got my musket, but it broke, and I need to get it fixed, and nobody here works on muskrat tech. So it would be something that through advancement maybe I could get that going again.
Or through adventure too. You could go on to find your item that may have been misplaced or stolen or picked up by a bystander or something like that.
I am hunting.
Yeah, there's all different ways to do that. My players have a bad habit of the villain's gear and then using it like 6 adventures later when I've totally forgotten that they have that. So that things like that do happen. Yeah.
So I took 1 rank in accurate, 1 rank in disengage, and 1 rank in toughness for my 3 points.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. I'm ready for next step.
Okay. So step 9 is to fill in hand-to-hand, ranged, and defense modifiers, as well as total armor, hand-to-hand damage bonus, and range damage bonus. So for hand-to-hand on your sheet there, it's essentially what modifiers you have to hit hand-to-hand. So if you have talents like combat mastery or favorite attack, they would give you a bonus. So how many ranks do you have in those?
I have 1 rank in favorite attack, 1 rank in physical. I don't remember if physical was helping in that or not.
I have 3 ranks in combat mastery. I also have 2 ranks in mighty. I don't know if mighty works for that.
Okay. Physical itself can be used as almost like an athletics kind of role.
Yeah.
It can be used in combination or as opposed to acrobat. But in your sense, I think acrobat makes more sense. Physical though might help you to wiggle your way out of a bonds or something like that if you're entangled. Or it could help you run farther and that sort of thing. Okay. But it won't affect your chance to hit.
Okay, cool. I didn't really expect to when I saw it, but by all means, being a athletic muskrat definitely seems something. Now, if I'm using acrobatics, I won't get that physical. Didn't I need to make a roll with acrobatics or something?
That's correct. Normally with acrobatics, you choose either acrobatics or physical for the stunt. Now you also have stunts. So stunts adds +3 to your effects for acrobatics or physical. So
nice.
it could mean that you can contort you dislocate your shoulder and get out, or that sort of thing. If you need to get under a fence as a dog's chasing you, that you might be able to have a better chance of squeezing your way through or diving over, for example.
I love this because, just from coming in with a concept and then picking things that seem to fit, it's building towards, a goal that I don't know if it's the most effective or anything, but everything seems to be funneling into a certain ways of doing things and supporting each other. So that's awesome.
And
I find that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I find that that helps, with the characters, with your concepts. Helps build as you build the character, the concept gets built as well. Yeah.
And I figured out my answer for mighty. Mighty is going to be adding to my damage later when we get to that stuff.
That's right. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So range, RNG. What do we put in for that?
Okay. So if you have any talents that help with your range, so for example, combat mastery with crossbows, for example, would be, or a ranged attack, or your muskets, that would give you a ranged modifier, or a favored attack with that sort of thing. So you would have to kind of, if you've chosen a ranged attack, that would help with that. So in your talent. So if you don't have a talent. If you don't have that talent, though, you would just put a 0.
Okay. So my question is, since for my combat mastery, I stated that it's the weapons I make out of myself, and I will occasionally make ranged weapons. Does that mean that I do have ranged on that? And would that be a 6 because ability plus that? So 6 instead of 3?
Now, generally, I would have the character choose
Okay.
if it's ranged or if it's hand to hand. Now, you have 3 points in combat mastery.
Yes, I do have 3 points in combat mastery.
So, for example, you could put 2 into hand to hand and 1 into ranged if you chose,
Yeah, I think I'll
or
do that. Because
that
I
might
want to
be,
be heavily melee leaning, so that totally
yeah.
makes sense. So
Okay.
5 and 4 sounds good.
Yeah, and what you do just on your notes there for your talent, you might just indicate that maybe 2 are for hand to hand, or and 2 are
Sure.
for 1 is for ranged. That's how I generally do that. Yeah,
Sure,
I like to keep
sounds good.
things. I like to keep things simple, but I like to have that flex.
Sure.
And then defense is the same thing as just go back, look at your talents, and see if any of them are applying to your defense. Otherwise, you're +0.
That's correct. So, for example, elusive what talent would give you a +1 for the rank you have on there.
I was so close to elusive. There's just too much good stuff to take.
Well, now with your character though, with stunts and with acrobatics, you could come into a combat with cartwheels and use acrobatics in a defensive manner, as opposed to an offensive attack. So
Yep.
there's all kinds of ways of working around that. And with the elemental character, for example, you could use some of your power, to do something to make yourself a little less obvious to hit, for example, if you turned into a water form or a gas or something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. So, and then we go off to the damage, range damage, and armor part, right? Now?
That's right. So yeah, so the hand-to-hand damage bonus, I generally write down if you weapon in a standard way, like, so for example, your sword, I think, has a plus, you took a medium sword, I think you get a +1 on your attack.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, maybe
A +1 on damage, I thought it was.
+1 on damage, yeah, I'm sorry. And if you have mighty, you can add the point there.
I have 2 points of mighty, so 2 points there, so that's 5.
That's very good.
And for ranged, do we start with a base of 3 or do we start with a base of 0 if we don't have anything modifying it?
You start with a base of 0. Now, so hand-to-hand is just the bonus. You don't add your ability to that.
Oh, okay.
So you just add the bonuses in there. So
okay. So I'm adding 2 to that. Okay. And then armor, I have toughness 1, which I believe that puts in armor because I take 1 less point of damage.
That's true. 1 point.
1. Awesome.
That's 1. Yeah. Okay. And is our muskrat armor? Do you have any?
I've got the lightly armored costume, so I think that's a +2.
Okay. So what is that? Is it a rank 1 armor?
Yeah.
So if you have, let me find it. It's at the beginning here.
This costume is made of light ballistic material, stopping 2 points of damage.
2 points. Just confirming that. Yeah, 2 points is great. Yeah. So essentially there you have hand-to-hand, range, defense modifiers, as well as armor, hand-to-hand damage bonus, and range damage bonus. And from that point, you just sort of write down your character's shtick.
Alice, hero points are below talents.
Talents. Oh, there is the hero point section. Woohoo! Okay, thank you for finding that.
No problem.
Oh yeah, that's right, because it crosses over the sheet. So on the class it says, and on the on the origins it says hero points, and then on the class it has the space to write it. I was looking at the classes and just saw the blank box. So shtick basically is your catch. So what's your what's your what's your thing?
Elemental forming weapons from body. I already filled that in a while ago.
Perfect.
And I named myself Grail. I have no alter ego because I'm a public identity since I'm always a bodily form. Then again, I guess, depending on the form I take, I can cloak up and cover up. So maybe I will pick an alter ego. And I'll just basically be always hidden and such.
Yeah. Now, with secret identities, there is an option to have a dark secret as a secret identity. And I made that optional because sometimes it's more of a problem than other times. It could be more of an issue, say, for if Tony Stark wanted to keep his identity secret because he's so much more to lose, right? So a normal superhero, I generally don't make it too much of an issue. If they don't have the dark secret, you know, you're not going to have J. Jonah Jameson trying to find out who's Spider-Man, you know, if he doesn't have that. But definitely, Spider-Man definitely has secret identity. So.
Yeah. You know, I'll figure out if I have an alter ego name or not. Or
Yeah,
just
sometimes.
try and blend in and give fake names every time I go somewhere. That works too.
Yep, that works.
And then I'll try and form a fake ID out of water, and then it won't work, and it's like, oops, oh well.
You could be like a adventure geologist.
Yes.
You have to wear a little red cap, you know, and just
Mm-hmm.
out for adventure with your geological hammer.
Yep.
There
Well,
you go.
is that all it takes to make a character?
That's generally it. And I've had people who, as we're playing at places when we've been playing out, and they've made a character, and it's taken them anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes to put these characters together, and then suddenly they've got a playable character. And you know, it's usually something you learn as you play. Obviously, like every game. But it's, you know, it's kind of fun to create a character and then and as you said, flesh it out and come up with a concept on the go, and then suddenly there's this character that could have been around for years in a comic, which I think is kind of fun.
Well, awesome. I had a lot of fun sitting down and making this character with you. Thank you very much for coming on, David. And I look
Thank
forward to
you.
playing the game with you.
It'll be a lot. Yeah, hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. I appreciated questions. I have questions as we went along here.
Good. Well, anything you want to add?
So you don't care my shtick? I don't get a shtick, Alice?
Sorry, Brandon. What is your shtick? I missed
We need
that.
your shtick.
I'm an adolescent cross-dimensional musketeer muskrat. Because I am not a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
And if you can sing the theme song during the adventure, all kinds of bonuses there. Awesome.
He will do that. I will make sure he does. Okay. Well,
That's great.
Anybody wants to add before we close out?
Hey, like I said, during this was awesome. You know, came in with a concept, just started picking things, and they really, you know, saying, hey, acrobatics, stunts, and things like that, and the powers and the talents support exactly what you think they're going to do. So it does make picking out a character, even if you're not certain of what the system is, it makes me feel like I picked a character that is doing exactly what it should be doing. So that's awesome. They're lots of fun to hear as you're going through. So I'm super excited about it. It looks like a lot of fun, and like you say, it sounds like a game that's easy for young people, but engaging enough for an older audience as well.
I hope so. Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you all, and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. See ya.
Hey Blades! Thank you so much for watching another Babies with Knives video. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Go follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and come join the conversation in our Discord server.
If you want to keep content like this coming, come check out our Patreon and consider subscribing. All links for this is provided in the description below. And remember, come back next time to get honed!